What life was like in medieval castles. The medieval era was a time of great turmoil, innovation, and rigid social structures. Castles were not only symbols of power, but also centers of governance, defense, and daily life. These massive stone fortresses stood tall over landscapes, offering protection to those within and exerting dominance over those outside. But what would it truly like to live within these imposing walls? This documentary-style narrative will transport you into the very heart of medieval castle life, where lords and ladies managed their estates, knights honed their skills for battle, and servants toiled tirelessly to keep the stronghold running. The castle as a fortress and home. Medieval castles were designed primarily for defense, and every architectural feature served a purpose. The thick stone walls, high towers, and narrow windows provided security against invaders. The layout often consisted of multiple layers of fortification, including moats, drawbridges, and defensive battlements from which archers could shoot arrows at approaching enemies. Yet despite their imposing exteriors, castles were also homes, filled with people who lived, worked, and even celebrated within their confines. The keep was the heart of the castle, where the lord and his family lived in relative luxury. It contained a great hall used for feasts, political gatherings, and ceremonies. Below, there were storage rooms stocked with grain, dried meats, and barrels of ale to sustain the inhabitants during times of siege. The outer courtyards housed stables, blacksmith workshops, and living quarters for soldiers and servants. In addition to being strongholds, castles functioned as centers of governance, where lords held court, resolved disputes, and planned military campaigns. Life inside the castle followed a strict hierarchy, with the noble family at the top, followed by knights, skilled workers, and common servants. Each person had a role to play in ensuring the survival and prosperity of the stronghold. The hierarchy within the walls. Life in a medieval castle followed a strict social hierarchy. At the top was the lord, who owned the land and commanded the knights. He was responsible for making laws, overseeing the economy, and ensuring the castle remained well defended. The lady of the castle, while not a warrior, played a crucial role in managing the household, overseeing servants, and sometimes even organizing defenses in her husband's absence. Knights were next in the hierarchy, serving as warriors and protectors of the castle. They trained daily in swordsmanship and horsemanship, preparing for battle or jousting tournaments. Beneath them were squires, young men in training to become knights, who performed menial tasks while learning the art of combat. Some squires never achieved knighthood due to injury or lack of noble connections, remaining as men-at-arms for the rest of their lives. Below the knights and warriors were the skilled workers, blacksmiths, bakers, weavers, and scribes, who played crucial roles in maintaining the castle's functionality. Blacksmiths worked tirelessly forging weapons, armor, and tools, while bakers ensured a steady supply of bread for the entire population. Scribes, who were often among the few literate people in the castle, recorded financial transactions, laws, and battle strategies. At the lowest tier were the common servants and peasants. These individuals labored in the kitchens, cleaned chambers, tended livestock, and farmed the land surrounding the castle. Their work was grueling, their wages meager, and their futures uncertain. Few ever rose beyond their station, as medieval society was rigidly structured, making social mobility nearly impossible. A day in the life of a knight. Knights were the elite warriors of medieval society, dedicated to the principles of chivalry and martial prowess. Their daily routine was rigorous, filled with physical training, courtly duties, and moments of leisure that reinforced their noble status. A knight's life was one of discipline, devotion, and readiness for battle. Morning routine. A knight's day began at dawn with morning prayers, followed by a simple breakfast of bread, cheese, and ale. Hygiene was minimal, as baths were considered a luxury. Most knights simply washed their hands and faces before beginning their daily routines. Training and combat preparation. After breakfast, knights would train for combat in the castle courtyard. Training sessions included sword fighting, jousting, archery, and horsemanship. Sparring with blunted weapons was common to prevent serious injuries, but even so, injuries were frequent. Some knights specialized in certain forms of combat, such as mounted cavalry or siege warfare, which required distinct skill sets. In addition to combat training, knights also learned strategy and military tactics. They studied maps, analyzed battle formations, and practiced issuing commands to soldiers. The most successful knights were not only formidable warriors, but also skilled leaders who could command armies on the battlefield. Duties and responsibilities. Beyond warfare, knights were responsible for upholding the laws of their lord. They patrolled lands to ensure order, mediated disputes among peasants, and collected taxes. Some knights served as personal bodyguards to nobility, while others managed fortifications, making sure defenses were strong in case of an attack. Leisure and evening rituals. Despite their demanding roles, knights also indulged in moments of leisure. Many enjoyed hunting, falconry, and playing board games like chess, which was seen as a reflection of battlefield strategy. When evening arrived, knights attended feasts in the great hall, where they dined on roasted meats, drank fine wines, and enjoyed performances by minstrels and jesters. Storytelling was a common form of entertainment, and knights often recounted tales of their past battles or listened to troubadours singing of heroic deeds. As night fell, the castle quieted down. Some knights spent time in reflection or prayer, seeking divine guidance before retiring to their chambers. Their lives were dictated by duty and honor, and even in moments of rest, they remained ever prepared for the next call to arms. The role of women in castles. While medieval castles are often associated with kings, knights, and warfare, the role of women was equally vital in ensuring the smooth functioning of a stronghold. Noblewomen, in particular, had immense responsibilities that extended far beyond what many might assume. Noblewomen were not just caretakers of their households. They were also involved in estate management, diplomacy, and, in some cases, military strategy. When their husbands were away at war, it was often up to the lady of the castle to oversee economic affairs, resolve disputes, and even defend the castle if needed. Some noblewomen, like Eleanor of Aquitaine, wielded political influence that rivaled many men of their time. They were responsible for maintaining order among servants, training young women in courtly etiquette, and ensuring that supplies such as food, textiles, and medicines were adequately stocked. Additionally, noblewomen were highly educated compared to common women. They learned to read, write, and manage the intricate details of running a vast estate. Many were skilled in embroidery, music, and herbal medicine, often serving as healers within their communities. A noblewoman's day was filled with overseeing meals, managing finances, and handling correspondence with neighboring lords and allies. Peasant women, on the other hand, had much harsher lives. They worked as cooks, laundresses, and farmhands, often enduring long hours of labor with little recognition. Many peasant women also played roles as midwives, healers, and traders, contributing significantly to their local economies. Without their hard work, the castle would not function effectively. Siege warfare and defending the castle. Despite their massive stone walls and defensive structures, medieval castles were not invincible. Siege warfare was a brutal reality, often lasting weeks or even months. Attackers employed siege engines, such as trebuchets, battering rams, and siege towers, to breach the castle walls, while defenders fought desperately to repel the invaders. The preparation for a siege began long before an enemy army arrived. Lords ensured that castles were well stocked with food, fresh water, and weapons. Blacksmiths worked tirelessly to forge sword, armor, and arrows, while soldiers patrolled the walls, ready for an attack. Secret tunnels, known as sally ports, were often constructed to allow defenders to launch surprise attacks on besieging forces or to retrieve supplies. Once a siege began, life within the castle became tense. Food rationing was common, with grain and salted meat being essential staples. Wells were closely guarded, as poisoning the water supply was a common tactic used by attackers. Defenders relied on various countermeasures to hold their ground, including dropping boiling oil or rocks on those trying to breach the walls. Archers stationed in high towers rained arrows upon the enemy, while knights prepared for hand-to-hand combat if the walls were breached. One of the most infamous sieges in history was the Siege of Rochester Castle in 1215, where King John used tunnels to collapse the fortress's walls. Another notable example was the Siege of Chateau Gaillard, which demonstrated both the strength and vulnerability of medieval castles. The downfall of castles and their legacy for centuries. Castles stood as the ultimate defensive structures. But by the late medieval period, their dominance began to wane. The rise of gunpowder weaponry, particularly cannons, rendered traditional castle walls ineffective. No longer could stone fortifications withstand the explosive power of artillery, and as a result, castles gradually became obsolete as military strongholds. By the 16th century, many castles had been abandoned or converted into stately homes. Some, like Windsor Castle, were repurposed into luxurious palaces for royalty, while others fell into ruin. The focus shifted from fortification to comfort, with grand halls giving way to lavish gardens and more spacious living quarters. Despite their decline, castles left a lasting legacy on architecture, warfare, and culture. Their imposing structures continue to inspire filmmakers, novelists, and historians. From fantasy epics like Game of Thrones to historical dramas, the imagery of medieval castles remains deeply ingrained in popular culture. Today, many castles have been restored and serve as major tourist attractions, drawing millions of visitors who seek to experience the grandeur of medieval life. Even in ruins, castles evoke a sense of wonder and mystery. Whether standing atop a hill overlooking a valley or hidden deep within a forest, these remnants of the past remind us of an era of knights, lords, and the relentless pursuit of power. Medieval castles were more than just defensive structures. They were vibrant communities filled with intrigue, ambition, and struggle. Within their walls, people lived, worked, and fought to maintain their way of life. From the grandeur of noble banquets to the grim realities of siege warfare, castles were microcosms of medieval society, encapsulating both its beauty and brutality. Though their military relevance may have faded, their legacy remains. Whether through history books, fantasy novels, or preserved ruins, medieval castles continue to capture our imagination. They stand as enduring monuments to an age of chivalry, resilience, and architectural brilliance.